HTC Desire 530 Review. Ever heard that saying about how it's often a good idea to put in 20% of the effort to get 80% of the results? That sort of thinking works with the best cheap phones too. Pay 20% of the cost of, say, the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge and you can get ultimately a similar day-to-day experience. That's the whole point of phones like the Moto G and Oppo F1. The HTC Desire 530 shows you what happens when the seesaw tilts that bit too far. 18% of the cost and, oh dear, don't you know it? It looks promise your standard 720p mid-range phone experience with a bit of bonus pizzazz, but a slow processor and poor camera make it seem dated as soon as you turn it on. Desire phones used to be HTC's top mobiles, but now the range is all about the cheaper, fuzzier end of the spectrum. HTC has been making phones that look almost exactly like the Desire 530 for a couple of years. What they didn't have up until now, though, was speckles. Get a load of those dots. The white version I'm using is spattered with little orange and gray flecks, landing somewhere between Tate Modern and Paper Chase in its vibe. Not a bad place to be, I guess. The front bears so little resemblance to the back that it comes across like one of those skinny clip-on cases, though. It really seems like a way to make sure the Desire 530 doesn't look exactly like the old Desire 620. The two are otherwise dead similar. The great speaker con of 2016. I like the dots well enough, but the rest of the design isn't really so convincing. It's pretty big and chunky for a 5" phone, this. Your first response might be, well, it has those classic HTC stereo speakers, doesn't it? It doesn't, actually. Only the bottom one is a speaker, and it's not a particularly good one either. It's not very loud, and has that classic thin and weak mobile phone tone. This isn't the first time HTC has pulled this misleading design move either. Lots of Desire phones have it. Aside from being a bit big and having that split personality, the Desire 530 feels sturdy enough. You can't pull off the back, all the seams are tight, and the micro SD and SIM slots are hidden under a plastic flap on the side. It's not rubber sealed, though, so don't dip it in any full pints. HTC told me the glass on the front isn't Gorilla Glass, but does feel tough and has the right feel. I haven't managed to scratch it yet, so it must be fairly tough. The 16GB storage is generous too. Silver screen. It's 5 inches across, uses 720p Super LCD screen, has auto brightness and looks totally fine. The colors are perhaps tiny bit off, but it's the kind of skill your eyes get used to after about 10 minutes. It goes up to 330 candelas per meter brightness too, which is not quite as good as the 400 candelas per meter Oppo F1. But it's not bad for a 100-pounds-ish phone. It's fairly similar quality-wise to a Moto G screen. Just sharp enough, reflective but not insanely so, and big enough to enjoy games on. This is what a budget phone display is about. You can also fiddle with the Desire 530's color temperature too, to make it warmer or cooler looking. Sense defense. Little bits specific to Sense include an apps menu that scrolls vertically like that of the Android Marshmallow running underneath, but in pages rather than as a free-flowing scroll. It works pretty well, especially if you only have 2 to 3 pages of apps. Not used blank feed yet? It's an HTC-made home screen that is a customizable scroll of updates perfect for flicking through while you're on the train or the toilet. You can fill it with Facebook and Twitter bits, articles from websites filtered by interest, or both. The HTC Desire 530 has a Snapdragon 210 CPU, pretty much the most dismal Qualcomm chipset you'll find in a new phone these days. It's a quad-core CPU, which again will lull some into a false sense of security, but with 1.1 GHz Cortex-A7 cores it's nowhere near as good as the Snapdragon 410 used in the Moto G. In Geekbench 3 it scores just 986 points. Most of the 5" crowd get you roughly 50% more points. The phone has 1.5 GB RAM, which seems a reasonable amount for a phone this price. But it's not enough to avoid the lag factor.